Well, here we go. So this is about yesterday, March 7th. This was a day for us to go hiking out at Abel Tasman National Park.
Right.
So we got up in the morning and we were on the road by 8 something for our hour-and-a-half drive out to Marahau. That's it. Thank you. We got out there and got all organized, and they loaded us onto boats. Now the boats were in the parking lot on trailers, so we walked up this ramp in the parking lot and sat down. They took up the ramp, and then they hauled the trailer with tractor over down the boat ramp. Now when we started, it was high tide, and so the water was way up. All the boats in the estuary were floating, and the water was right up the boat ramp. And so it was easy for them to put us into the water. When we came back, it was going to be closer to low tide, and they were going to have to be way out on the extended beach.
Yeah, they took the tractor way out on the extended beach.
Right.
And put it partway into the water.
Right.
And there were Ford tractors, just saying.
Ford Fairlane tractors. Anyways, so the boat came off the trailer, and we left Marahau. Our first stop, our destination for us was going to be a place called Torrent Bay. And on our way there, we stopped and took pictures of Split Apple Rock.
Which is one of the most photographed places in the southern hemisphere, he said.
Yeah.
It may be true, I don't know.
Anyway.
Well, it was hard to get a good shot because there were other tourist boats on the other side of Split Apple Rock.
Right, that's true.
Driving around, so anyway, it was interesting.
This boat moved pretty fast. It sped off, and we went a few kilometers north, I don't know how far, to Torrent Bay. And so it pulled in near the shore, dropped anchor. He's got an automated system for this. Backed up until he was right near the shore, and then put a ramp out, an aluminum ramp onto the sand, and we could walk off.
Not even get our feet wet.
Right. And then he brought up the ramp and used the anchor line to pull himself back off of the sand, and took off.
To the next bay to drop the next people off.
Right. So this is a water taxi service. He goes from bay to bay to bay and does this. And so we started hiking out of Torrent Bay on our 6.7 kilometer hike, which was to take us an hour and 40 minutes.
Is that all? I thought it was 2 hours and 40 minutes. Or 2 hours and 10, 15
We'll check the sign out.
Yeah, I think it was 2 hours.
Well, it wasn't 6.7 kilometers, and it took us a lot longer than that. But we hiked. And
we hiked.
Oh,
No, go ahead.
You want to talk about the hike and what it was like?
Well, the hike was, I think you have it down, the different kinds of forests we went through, so why don't you?
Well,
it was a good path.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful hike. There was a lot of up and down, but much of it early on pretty much going up. You go up, down a little bit, but then up more again.
Right.
There must have been a lot of people that took the water taxi that day, or else they were traversing along that path, because we ran into a lot of people. It wasn't as uncrowded as we thought it would be, but everybody was so pleasant and said hello and along the way, and was respectful. It was great.
Right. So yeah, we went through forest.
Yeah.
Saw the beach and walked along the beach in places, and there were lots of sea views and big rocks that we would go around. The path itself was, packed gravel, and it was a good path.
Yeah. I mean,
well
it was
maintained.
rocky in places for
Right.
lots of stumps. You know, you had to watch out for your footing, but
We stopped a couple times. We had brought some sandwiches that Terry had gotten at the supermarket the day before. And the sandwiches were, a lot of mayonnaise, a fair amount of lettuce, a little bit of ham and cheese in one, and some kind of strange chicken in the other.
right. And not very much of it.
Neither one had beets. That was good. Anyways, the hike was pleasant, although my left knee started bothering me a lot on the descents. And so I ended up borrowing one of Terry's walking poles to help me with that. But eventually we came to Barks Bay. I had a hiking tracker on during the hike, and instead of it being 6.7 kilometers, it was 5.7 miles, substantially further.
Okay.
We should have been walking a little over 4 miles. Instead, we walked almost 50% more.
Right.
And it took us 3.5 hours. But we got to Barks Bay, and there was a campground there, and we sat in the sand and fed the sand flies, and the seagulls.
Yeah, the seagulls were cute. We had one seagull that came up. There were 2 or 3 seagulls around us. One seagull that came up, puffed his feathers up, and ran around and chased the other seagulls away. And then he stood at our feet and begged. He looked at us and he opened and chip, 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 trying to get us to give him food. And then anybody came near, he'd chase them away and come back.
Yeah.
I did get a video of him. It's pretty funny. Or her. Could have been her.
No comment. Okay. Anyways, eventually the boat came, and in the meantime, the tide had gone out quite a bit, and the boat had a hard time loading.
Yeah, it did.
The first time they tried, they had to have a second boat come and pull them off of the sand because they couldn't get in far enough. And we ended up having to take off our boots and socks and wade out to the boat in order to get off. Anyways, the boat eventually took us back to Marahau, and we went into the place that we'd had the calamari before, and this time we had green tip mussels. How were they?
They were great. They were really good.
Yeah.
And a little bit of hot red peppers in them, little red hot peppers, and lots of garlic, and cut up onions, and I'm sure there was some wine in there. Delicious. Really delicious. And I'd wanted to try the green lip mussels, and so that was the opportunity to do that.
Right. And we had a couple decaf cappuccinos.
True.
And then we drove back to Nelson, and we talked to our host here briefly about a couple things. She was bringing down census forms because we're here that day. We have to fill out a census form. So that's interesting. Anyways, I took a shower and we went out to a place called Hopgood's, which was highly recommended as one of the top restaurants in Nelson. We think it was overrated that way.
Yeah, I think so.
Our reservation wasn't until 8 o'clock, and we didn't get home until about 10, so that was difficult. Anyways, we started out with some warm olives, and those were nice. And they'd been warmed with bay leaves, and I'm not sure what else. And then we had a really nice stuffed zucchini flower.
That was an appetizer.
Yeah.
They call appetizers entrees, so you have to read the menu carefully.
Right. And then we had our main dish, which was a a fish, takakiri or something like
Yeah,
that.
which we never heard of before.
Um, and it was supposed to have a chimichurri sauce spelled in a very strange way. T-X-I-T,
Yeah,
anyways. Um, but there wasn't enough chimichurri sauce on it to really.
there was maybe a little less than a teaspoon. So I spread the chimichurri sauce out on the fish, but we couldn't taste it at all.
They had another sauce that was with it that kind of clashed with the chimichurri.
Yeah, you couldn't taste the chimichurri sauce.
Right.
So who knew,
Anyways,
right?
so the fish was probably cooked fine,
Mm-hmm.
but it didn't please us all that much.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we had dessert. It was a custard,
Mm-hmm.
and
They advertised it as a brown sugar custard.
right, it was a very. And we asked the waitress about it, and she says, "Oh, it's like a panna cotta,
Mm-hmm.
which is really loose and jiggly. This was firm and solid and almost dry,
Mm-hmm.
not at all like a panna cotta." And so it was a little different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but anyways, we were sitting there and trying and finishing everything up, and we were going through our notes, and we suddenly realized that we had thought we were leaving today, the next day, to go over to Renwick, and we realized that we had another day here in Nelson. Yeah. So I asked the waitress, I said, "What do you do with an extra day in Nelson?"
Yeah.
And so she recommended that we go on this one waterfall hike, and we've checked on it, and it's closed
Yeah,
because of washed out.
She did say it's closed, but just ignore the signs. They did, and go on to the waterfall, and it was fine. Yeah, well, that's not what other truckers said.
Yeah. We were looking at all hikes, and nobody else made it to the end, and they talked about slippery, kind of dangerous crossings. And
Mm-hmm.
anyways, we're not going to do it. But we asked her, we said, look, the United States has got this tipping economy where you tip your waiters and waitresses. The restaurants don't pay much, and so the service people get a lot of their income from tipping. I said, but here in New Zealand, you don't have tipping. And she said, no.
Mm-hmm. She doesn't expect it. That occasionally Americans come in and will tip, and when they do that, they share the tip among all of the staff.
She says it's really nice to get extra money, but it's not expected. Other people don't do it.
Right.
Instead, she gets paid $23.50 an hour.
Mm-hmm. But that's New Zealand dollars.
That's
and
New
the
Zealand.
New Zealand dollar is 60%, around 2/3, 66% of
Right.
that.
So it's around
American
it's $16 to $18, something like
Mm-hmm.
that. Yes, $16 US.
Mm-hmm.
But she seemed perfectly happy with that. And really, every waiter that we've had has been pleasant, has given good service, has, you know, it's been a pleasure interacting with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so at the point you were making, they seem to run on the positive. They don't even bring your check to your table. You go up and tell them what you had, and then they ring it up. And they're not paid on tips. It's like the honor system. And so that's pretty interesting.
It is. It is. Yeah, New Zealanders seem to focus on the positive in people. They often don't lock their homes, and
Well, we had that instance where they said, "Oh, they didn't even give us locks for the electric bikes in Hokitika."
right.
So, but it is a much smaller country than the U.S. Much, much smaller. 6 million something people in the whole country. So.
Right. Well,
So,
that's it.
That's it. So, yeah.
we're spending our extra day doing this trilogy with you.
Love.
Well, bye.